The engine coughed once, then died. Marcus Reed knew that sound too well, the hollow surrender of something pushed past its limit. He was standing on the shoulder of Route 17 just outside Newark, late for the most important court date of his life, when he heard it again. Not from his own truck, from the silver sedan 10 yards ahead of him. Steam curled from beneath its hood like a silent cry for help. Marcus glanced at the clock on his cracked dashboard. 8:42 a.m. He had to be in court by 9:30. Today wasn't just another hearing. Today was sentencing. One mistake. One desperate decision 18 months ago. One stupid moment when hospital bills for his 6-year-old son, Caleb, had piled higher than his pride. He swallowed. If the judge ruled against him, he could lose everything. He could lose Caleb. The sedan's hazard lights blinked weakly. Marcus closed his eyes for half a second. Not my problem, he told himself. But that wasn't who he was. He grabbed his worn jacket from the passenger seat, stepped out into the October chill, and walked toward the stranded car. 2 young women stood beside it, identical in a way that made them look like mirror reflections. Early 20s, well-dressed, one pacing, the other trying not to cry. "Car trouble?" Marcus asked gently. They both turned. Surprise flickered across their faces, maybe at his grease-stained jeans, maybe at the fact that someone had actually stopped. "It just shut off," one of them said. "We have no idea what happened." "We have a meeting," the other added, frustration cracking her voice. "We can't miss it." Marcus nodded. He understood missing important things. "Pop the hood," he said. He bent over the engine, the scent of coolant and burnt rubber rising up. It didn't take long to see the issue. Loose battery terminal, corroded enough to break connection. "You're lucky," he said, reaching into his truck for a wrench and an old rag. "Could have been worse." As he worked, the sisters exchanged glances. "You a mechanic?" one asked. "Used to be full-time," Marcus replied. "Now I take whatever shifts I can get." He didn't add that the garage cut his hours after he missed work to sit beside Caleb's hospital bed during an asthma attack. He didn't say that child support paperwork. And a custody dispute with his ex-wife had dragged him into court today. He didn't say that he was terrified. The terminal tightened. He cleaned off the corrosion as best he could. "Try it now." The engine roared back to life. Relief flooded their faces. "Oh my God," one breathed. "You saved us." Marcus wiped his hands on his jeans. "Just tightened a bolt." They hurried to grab their purses. "Please let us pay you," the calmer one insisted, pulling out her wallet. Marcus shook his head. "No, ma'am." "At least take something." He hesitated. He thought about gas money, about Caleb's inhaler refill, about the late electric bill sitting on his kitchen counter. Then he saw the way the more anxious sister's hands were still trembling. "Just drive safe," he said. "That's enough." They stared at him as if he'd spoken another language. "Thank you," they said in unison. Marcus gave a small nod, climbed back into his truck and pulled away. He didn't see the way they watched him go. He didn't know they were twins. And he certainly didn't know who their father was. The courtroom felt colder than the October air. Marcus sat at the defense table, fingers laced tightly together. His public defender whispered something about plea deals and character references, but the words blurred. Across the aisle sat his ex-wife, Lauren, stiff-backed and composed. She wanted full custody. She argued Marcus was unstable, financially unreliable, that his prior charge, nonviolent, theft of medical equipment parts from a supplier, proved poor judgment. He hadn't stolen to sell. He'd stolen parts to repair a breathing machine when Caleb's insurance delayed approval. He'd confessed immediately, but the law didn't always weigh intention the same way it weighed action. "All rise," the bailiff called. Marcus stood as the judge entered, and then his stomach dropped. The man taking his seat behind the bench was tall, silver-haired, with sharp but thoughtful eyes. Marcus recognized him instantly, not from memory, but from the resemblance. The twins, the same eyes, the same posture. Judge Harold Whitaker. Marcus's throat went dry. He had fixed that man's daughter's car less than 2 hours ago. Of course the judge didn't recognize him. Why would he? He hadn't been there. The proceedings began. Charges were read. Arguments made. Lauren's attorney painted Marcus as reckless. Good intentions don't erase criminal behavior, he said smoothly. My client seeks stability for her son. Marcus's lawyer spoke about hardship, about a father who never missed a visitation, about neighbors who testified he coached Little League for free. The judge listened without expression. When it was Marcus's turn to speak, he stood slowly. His palms were sweating. Your Honor, he began, voice unsteady. I made a mistake. I won't pretend I didn't, but I did it because my son couldn't breathe. And I panicked. I thought I could fix it and return the parts before anyone noticed. I was wrong. He swallowed. I'm not asking for sympathy, just a chance to keep being his dad. The room fell silent. Judge Whitaker studied him carefully. There was no flicker of recognition, no hint that their paths had almost crossed. Then, just as the judge opened his mouth to speak, the courtroom doors burst open. Dad! Two voices, breathless. Heads turned. The twins stood there, flushed and wide-eyed. The bailiff stepped forward. You can't? It's important, one of them insisted. Judge Whitaker's expression hardened slightly. This is highly irregular. I know, the calmer twin said, stepping forward. But you need to hear this before you decide anything. A murmur rippled through the courtroom. Judge Whitaker sighed. You have 1 minute. They turned, not to their father, to Marcus. That's him, one said, pointing. Marcus felt heat rush to his face. This morning, the other continued, our car broke down on Route 17. We were going to miss an investor meeting that affects dozens of employees at our startup. He stopped. He fixed it. He refused payment. The first twin swallowed. We didn't even get his name. Silence pressed in from every side. Judge Whitaker's gaze shifted slowly to Marcus. Is this true? He asked. Marcus nodded, stunned. Yes, Your Honor. Why did you refuse payment? Marcus hesitated. Because I needed the money, he thought. Because I'm scared. Because I don't know what tomorrow looks like. Because they needed help, he said simply. The judge leaned back. The twins stepped beside the gallery, hands clasped. He didn't know who we were, one added quietly. He just saw people in trouble. The courtroom air felt charged. Judge Whitaker looked at Marcus differently now. Not softer, not biased, but as if seeing more layers. After a long moment, he spoke. Character is not defined by a single failure, he said slowly. It is revealed by what a person chooses to do when no one is watching. He glanced briefly at his daughters, then back at Marcus. You committed a crime, but you took responsibility. You have no prior record, and today you demonstrated something. This court values deeply integrity, without expectation of reward. Lauren shifted in her seat. Judge Whitaker continued, Mr. Reed, I am sentencing you to probation, community service, and mandatory ethics counseling. As for custody, this court sees no evidence that you are anything other than a devoted father. Marcus's breath caught. Joint custody will remain in place. The gavel struck. It sounded like mercy. Outside the courthouse, Marcus sat on the steps, hands shaking. He wasn't going to lose Caleb. Footsteps approached. He looked up to see the twins. Hi, one said gently. I'm Ava. This is my sister, Elena. Marcus, he replied. We're glad we made it in time, Elena said. Marcus let out a shaky laugh. Me too. A black town car pulled up. Judge Whitaker stepped out. For a moment, Marcus stiffened. But the judge walked toward him, extending a hand. I owe you thanks, he said quietly. You don't owe me anything, sir. Yes, the judge replied. I do. Not because you helped my daughters, but because you reminded them and me what decency looks like. Marcus shook his hand. The judge's grip was firm, warm. Probation will be strict, Whitaker added. But if you ever need a professional reference once it's completed, my chambers can be contacted. Marcus blinked. Thank you, Your Honor. As the judge walked away, Ava hesitated. Our company needs a fleet mechanic, she said carefully. Full-time, benefits, we're actually on our way to pitch expansion. Funding this morning. Elena smiled. We think you'd be perfect. Marcus stared at them. You don't even know me. Ava grinned. We know enough. He thought of Caleb, of inhalers and Little League and overdue bills, of a world that sometimes closed doors, and sometimes unexpectedly opened them. I'd like that, he said. That evening, Marcus picked up Caleb from school. His son ran into his arms. "Did the judge take me away?" Marcus knelt, holding him tight. "No, buddy," he whispered, voice thick. "We're okay." Caleb looked up at him. "Why?" Marcus smiled through tears. "Because sometimes," he said softly, "doing the right thing matters more than we think." As the sun dipped low over the New Jersey skyline, father and son walked to their old truck, still coughing, still imperfect, but still moving forward. And for the first time in a long while, so were they.